Hang on, I'm trying
Hello,
to
Jeff.
get something organized here.
Marco,
Okay.
Yes.
Melvin. Hey, Marco.
Hi, Andrew.
All right.
How are ya?
All is
I'm
well.
ready.
There's Jeff Scott.
Okay.
There's Allison Villa.
All right, here we go. I'll try to get to some issues for you, Jeff, as soon as that kind of relate to you. Not sure, super, but we'll try. Hello, everybody. Here we go. Anybody have a chance to look at the January minutes?
Yeah.
No issues? Any
No,
issue?
they were great.
Anybody
Well
objects?
done.
No objections to the way they're written?
Did a great job. I like them.
Oops.
Could you mute? That'd be great.
Me?
Anybody have any prospects? Committee prospects?
No.
Yeah. Just not seeing a lot of people. Just not happening. First up is the maritime shirt tail thing, and I think I might have mentioned it last time. I was able to get Jeremy to say, "Yeah, I got to get on that." And then a couple weeks later, I wrote to Audra asking her whether there were any budget considerations. Jeff, this is the item that I wanted you to hear. Whether there are any budget considerations, not only for Camden, but for Rockport, if when the bid goes out from MDOT and we get a final answer for construction of maritime. But she hasn't answered me yet. So I sent her a reminder yesterday. There was a lot going on with the town meeting, but I'll keep the pressure on her. The issue that you guys asked me to follow up on was whether there needed to be any adjustment based on an RFP going out from MDOT for the maritime and shirt tail construction. And the answer is they won't know until they get the bids back. And if they don't come in within budget, then that's a whole nother issue, not only for the towns, but for MDOT. So I don't think there's really anything that we can do. And Jeff, I'm assuming that that Rockport still has a restricted fund they allocated some amount of money based on and Helen, you might know this too, from the budget committee work, that it should be sitting in a bucket somewhere, the matching funds in Rockport and the matching funds in Camden. I know Camden has them, but I just haven't.
Wonderful, the budget.
Yeah,
And see.
I'm pretty sure it is, Jeff. The select board in Rockport, almost a year ago, after the last revised estimate, increased the amount that it allotted to the project. So unless that has changed greatly, I suspect it ought to be pretty straightforward in terms of execution.
Okay, I just didn't know if that bucket had been invaded by something else. But I think it's a restricted fund, so it has to be used for that matching, I suspect.
If we voted to earmark that money there, then that's where it stayed.
Okay, and that vote did happen.
I mean, I'm sure others have seen this too, but both Vicky Dudaris sent out her work list of transportation, and then the MDOT had something in Village Soup that mentioned that a multi-use path was you know, that project and also the one going up to Shirt Tail. I mean, if they're announcing it to the public, is it,
Oh, they know it needs to be done. And the money on MDOT side has been earmarked or
okay,
put in a bucket for those projects. And it's at the front burner for the money from MDOT. We just need to move that process along. And actually I did remember Jeremy said that, his name is slipping my mind, but our MDOT engineer is in those conversations, and he's following the progress of this. So he's waiting and pushing the town of Camden to close out the easement, to finalize the easements on the Shirt Tail part. There's just some paperwork, I think, maybe not, but I'll stay on that. I am on that. I've got reminders. So I think we're okay on that.
Yeah, I'm not finding the budget line right offhand. I thought I had it tagged. How much was in it?
We can keep poking at that, Helen, and I'll move along if that's okay.
Yep.
Let's see. The wastewater treatment plant, I think I mentioned it last time, is rezoning, in the process of putting, not rezoning, but in the process of putting both parcels under the same zone. So they'll both be zone business versus having half of it in village, I think, or something like that. That shouldn't be new news to you, Allison. I'm watching your eyes, but
How will it be zoned?
It's
think
not new news to
business.
me. I was
Okay.
looking at something. I was
okay.
doing something
I
else.
was trying to read your face.
Oh
yeah,
no,
Andrew.
don't try to interpret. I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna like sabotage this from the side or something at the end. Don't worry. We might need a few more protections from the river here and there, but
Andrew, that was, I'm pretty sure it's business, B1 or something like that. Pretty sure, not positive, but it's a business zone, because that's what the other half is. Actually, I can check this if you're
it
really
might be
interested.
transitional.
It may be BTR. It's possible.
We may have gotten rid of the BTR. I think it's
But we may have gotten rid of it. I'm having some trouble. I'm waiting for the new map to come out with the new zones.
Wouldn't it be industrial?
That's not a zone.
it is a zone, but it's not. That's
Is
not,
it?
it doesn't. The zone it's in right now doesn't make any sense. It's the same issue we have with the middle school. But that's on its way.
It's moving anyway. And the
Now
reason we're
Anita's
interested,
Anita's on the planning board now, so she'll be able to keep right on track with
that's
that.
right. That's right. That's big news, actually. Anita's on the planning board. So we have another voice. Hi, Heidi.
Yeah.
Let's see. And actually kind of related to the Riverwalk, Allison did invite me to join one of the sort of organizing meetings of the restoration, the McGonagall Restoration Project. It was really, I thought it was really one well done information meeting in terms of a first meeting. A lot of heavy hitters on that call. About 25, 30 people on the call from lots of governmental departments, both state and federal. And I think all these various stakeholders understand the scope of the project and that it'll be good work moving forward. And most of the time was dominated by some baseline sort of fundamental work done on where we are right now. You know, what level the water's at in the river, what height the dams are, what's the flow, what fish are moving up and down, which they're still looking at. And then some what if questions of if this dam were removed, or if this fish passage was added. Some of those what if questions are starting to be asked, which have to be asked on a big picture. You know, if you remove a dam, does that affect flooding in town? Does it help? Does it hinder? A lot of different ways to look at this this issue.
Did pathways come up in any of this, the Riverwalk?
Oh, yeah.
I sort of, Allison encouraged me, and I took the opportunity to remind folks about that. And we also let them know that there's a master plan that's directly related to this. So, and Allison, after that call, I actually reached out to, I can't remember her name. It's an unusual name, the facilitator, Shri
from Midcoast Conservancy.
Shri, yeah, and she's gone great. She's interested in learning more about that master plan, and so I'll get that.
Yeah,
to her, too.
and this is something just in case anybody's listening to this, the sort of the purpose of this meeting also was to get input on what the best forms of public input would be. So this was, even though it was actually a pretty large meeting, that was the attempt to start off with some people that have some baseline knowledge, and especially the big government, DMR, Fish and Wildlife, Nature Conservancy, all these different funding partners. NRCM board member. It was Noah. Noah had two people there.
Trout Unlimited was there. There was just people all over the place.
But so now there's going to be a series of much more kind of open public meetings, and we're going to go out to pretty much any group that wants to talk. But even though they may not have realized it, you provided some feedback about, okay, keep in mind the Riverwalk. But I think as the engineers learn a little bit more, they'll see how relevant that section, as part of the study, we're supposed to come up with two sites that have a preliminary design. And one of those could potentially be the Knowlton Street Dam. And the entire area behind the middle school is impacted by the Knowlton Street Dam. And as you probably noticed, there's tons of funding, and they're really pressuring us to try to be able to come up with something that we can ask for funding for. So that would be a perfect time to and I'm just going to keep hammering this, that the design for that whole back area could incorporate a Riverwalk. And it's because there's so much funding available. It could also be maybe even an elevated one or a bridge, or looking at some of those options. So anyway, that would be an opportunity to design a massive section of the Riverwalk in conjunction with, the river restoration projects.
Linda.
Where's all the funding coming from, Allison?
Right now it's coming from the national, we have got $139,000 from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. So that's where the planning money is from. But they do it in phases. So the idea is that they come up, they fund planning and assessment grants for projects that they think are highly likely to receive design and construction funding in separate stages. So it's basically NOAA and NIFWF, which is the acronym for National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. They have about $32 million-ish a year that they dole out. It was exciting too, because they were like, are you, one of the questions that kept coming out from the NOAA people was, are you guys going to be ready to apply for funding money? Are you going, for design money, for construction money?
They kept saying, shovel ready. Are you shovel ready? If you're
Right.
shovel ready, we're ready to go.
Yeah, that was, so anyway, I think it's a really great opportunity for the Riverwalk potentially.
What did you say about the funding? You have secured funding, or there is funding that could be secured?
We have funding for the assessment right now. Then based on what we find for the assessment, the idea is that from that, we come up with viable projects that can be funded in terms of design and construction. So as long as we, that funding source that we're using right now is a funding source for subsequent stages of the project too. But I wouldn't get too caught up in that part for anything right now.
Is this to completely get rid of the dam that's at Knowlton Street?
No, don't,
Or to
that's getting
provide
too
a
much into
passage.
the. Right now, we're just assessing what so they've measured all the sediment. They're compiling lists of things that need to be assessed. They're assessing all the structures, all of the, they test all the sediment for toxicity. One of the great things is that they have not found any human health concerns, nothing that's worse than anything in the harbor, so. But this, I wouldn't say, this is just a broad overview. Keep it on your radar. I'll continue to make sure that Pathways has a voice and everything whenever it's relevant. And it was great to have Jeff there.
Thank you, Allison. And that's the key, is that it's that in a nutshell, it is a baseline assessment. Like, you need that data in order to move forward. And there are no decisions being made. That won't happen until the public has the chance to give their input. And that's the key, is moving forward. What's that process? Who are the stakeholders, et cetera? Okay. Helen, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I found that figure for you. We're under Cultural and Recreation Parks Department, not Public Works. The Pathways Reserve is currently standing at 25,000. I think there's some other stuff floating around somewhere that's in another fund.
I'll double check that after the meeting, but it
Yeah.
sounds about right.
But what was our percentage before, wasn't it?
It's too complicated.
The last estimate, but if they're going to increase it. Yeah.
Well, we don't know. We don't know anything about increase. All I'm doing is, the point of the question, Helen, was to just make sure that restricted funds, those restricted funds were still there. So
Yeah.
we'll work with that and we'll adjust as needed.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Helen. Last meeting, you asked me to contact Maria Libby, and I did try, and I don't know what happened, but anyway, I've got a meeting with her tomorrow, finally, coincidentally, just a day late. So I don't have any information. Again, the point was just to let Maria Libby, just give her an update and ask her about basic information related to the final impervious surface coverage at CRMS. So that's the goal of that conversation. So tomorrow, and I'll update you at the next call, or I'll send an email and let you know. Any update on Route 90 work? I think Margot, Linda, you were going to maybe try to schedule a meeting with Patrick? Or you had one?
You want me to talk? You talk. We did have a
I'll
meeting.
just keep
Yeah, go
talking.
ahead, Margaret.
I mean, we can just jump.
So
at
Margot,
this point. Can you hear me?
yeah,
So yes, both Linda, Helen, Heidi, and I all met with both Patrick Adams and Stephen Cole. We are through that process, which I think we all left feeling far more optimistic about, possibilities. But we're meeting tomorrow with Bill Post and Deb Hall, and I don't know if you're going to be able to join us, Jeff. To talk about kind of where we need to start with first steps really being around planning, and that there is money, and that's why we're kind of trying to get quickly into meeting with these guys in case there's the possibility of adding some planning money into this year's budget. But essentially, there aren't barriers to putting sidewalk up Route 90. There are some issues around a crosswalk, but they gave us some very creative ways of perhaps thinking about that. But really, anything needs to come out of planning. And if a planning study actually showed that all those pieces could be justified, we've got a couple of options that we can consider. So we feel like we're making some interesting progress. Slow, but sure. And Stephen Cole is our regional planner for DOT.
That was my question, Mark. You know, I was going, who's Stephen Cole? So he's MDOT?
He's MDOT and he's the regional planner. And he lives in Damerscott. He's got a couple regions, but this region he has a particular fondness for. So both he and
But they all say that.
And they both said that they were very familiar with the desire to put a pathway out on Route 90. So there's been multiple discussions in the past, and they're really clued in. They were very helpful, and they spoke with us. I don't know, what time was it? 5 o'clock. They took a lot of time at the end of their day and really were constructive.
Good for you. What time is that meeting?
2:45
Tomorrow?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when I have my meeting with Maria. 3 o'clock.
Jeff, one of the things will come up, I only will be in that last bit of the meeting because I won't be home until after 3, but we'd like to get money into the budget for this planning, PPI, Planning Partnership and Initiative, which is why we're trying to get to meet with Bill before he sends the budget out next week. So just to give you a
And
heads
it's
up.
matching. DOT would come up with that and they think they still have money for these planning
Right.
grants.
So just so I know, Margot, how much are you asking for from the town?
It wouldn't be more than 25,000. That's the max. And so we don't really know what the scale of the planning would be, but 50,000 are the biggest planning grants, and it may not be that much.
All right, let's touch bases in the morning between you and I, just if we can, to bring me up to 100% speed.
Okay. I may be in school, but we can figure something out. If it's early,
Would this be sort of like funding facilitators to hold charrettes and public information meetings and things like that? Or is it more for, I don't know. I'm trying to get my hands around this planning.
So the plan, we could extend it to include other parts, so if we wanted to include looking at, a walkway that went out on Route 1 and around, we can look at it, but really it would include things like feasibility. Does it even make sense? Is there enough justification based on traffic? So if we wanted to, they talked about islands are a way that you naturally slow traffic. And like in front of the high school, if there were an island and that was a natural way to slow traffic, then that may become a justification to put a crosswalk in. Or maybe it doesn't even make sense to put the sidewalk on the other side. Maybe the sidewalk should be on the high school side. And so a planning feasibility study would study all the different elements and come up with the best strategy for what would work based on, and it also would allow us to project into the future, and we can look at, how has the outdoor economy grown? We get to put whatever elements into that, sort of thinking, oh, do we want to be able to connect to the Erickson trails? Do we want to be able to cross Route 90 so Rockland can connect with Rockport trails? And so we get to look at the big picture, not just this crosswalk from the high school across Route 90. It's kind of what's going to add the most, make the most sense and the most leverage for how we want pathways, what we want to be happening in terms of connectivity.
I think we put the emphasis on public safety and outdoor economy. And
Right.
those two resonate with the DOT right now.
Yep.
It would include some public meetings for feedback, is what I understood.
That is true.
Anita?
When they're doing this feasibility study, are they won't be able to collect valid data, a non-COVID data regarding traffic or pedestrian traffic or much of anything. So how do they do a feasibility study without that
Those
kind
are
of
good
data?
questions. I'm sure there's some algorithm or some factor they can figure out. I do know that they said what's really hard is that your comprehensive plan may say something, but if you don't really have a feasibility study and a planning study that goes with it, it's kind of like you have the big goals in your comprehensive plan. This becomes the real specifics of how things can happen, what your costs would be, how to, do you do this thing first or do you do this other thing? Can you do them in phases? And so that's what a planning study would help us, sort of get to those goals of the comprehensive plan, but in a way that makes sense.
This is going back in history a little bit. Did the words summit engineering come up at all?
No.
I'm going to go back and see if I can find something. I think this predates online. Summit Engineering, I think, did all this like 15, 18 years ago.
I know
So-
Patrick has been with working in this region for,
I think it was before him. It was the, I can't remember his name, the guy that lived in Brunswick. That's when it was.
so if it's more than 15 years ago, some of the needs then, I'm sure safety was still a part of it. But
Yeah, the schools changed and stuff like
the
that.
schools changed, the community, has had some different pressures. They did talk about one very cool thing that they're looking for a pilot community, but we're a long ways from there. They don't have a community yet to try this new kind of crosswalk approach, and it's a hybrid beacon signal. And so what would happen is it's always flashing yellow, but somebody can hit the button and then it turns red and you can cross. And so it's, they don't have one anywhere in the state. I guess they're pretty popular in other regions.
They had one of those in Boulder, Colorado.
I think they did mention out. And so the idea of, we might be the prime community to pilot one of these new kind of crossings. So.
All right, good. Sounds like it was a really, really good conversation. Good work, you guys. That's excellent. Thank you. Bike awareness. I actually did something. Yeah, hang on. That's 2 items down, Allison. Bike awareness, I wrote up drafts, Linda, and sent them to you.
Yes, I
for,
saw them. They're great.
Good. I wrote advisory lanes and sharrows for website and for press. So I did 4 little article things. And Linda's gonna make them, she's gonna polish them up. I didn't give her much time, but she's looking at them and she'll polish them up. And once she does that, I think send them to Janice, Allison, for the website. Yeah, I think that's the next step, or she'll figure it out. That would be the right connection to ask her to post it. And
Send it-
Allison,
Sorry,
so
send the PR to Janice to post on the Town of Camden website.
no,
Is that what
the website copy. I have 2, I have a website copy and then a PR copy. So the website copy would be integrated into a website info page.
So what I liked, Jeff, was your website copy more than the PR. I mean, the PR, the website could just be the PR as well. I mean, it was snappier.
We can talk about that. We can talk about
We'll
that.
talk about
Yeah. And Allison, I had sent you one of the questions for the group. That you remember this
Video.
Video. I was thinking I could pull it up and show it to you again, but I think you remember it, the video about advisory lanes, and it's done by Ottawa. I think it would be really hard to tweak it and get the soundtrack right and all that stuff because there's a woman talking all the time, and I don't know, Allison.
I to confess, I didn't look at it, but I could do that in the background right now.
But the idea I had, and I wanted to throw it out to the group, is couldn't we just say something like, and Linda, I think I wrote it in the copy, like, this is a great informational video done by the city of Ottawa that explains advisory lanes, and just say, hey, just credit them with it, and people are smart enough. We don't have to.
It might even be better for people to see it coming from somewhere else than from us.
Maybe so.
Right,
That was my
Ottawa.
idea.
Everybody will say, ooh, Canada's doing it. We should do it.
Right.
Except Canada credits the United States for having them. So anyway, it's okay. That was my idea, to avoid creating work for ourselves. We already have, Ottawa already said you're free to use the video. So they gave us that.
Yeah, that actually sounds better to have it,
Yeah.
rather than
it's
having
tighter.
done a lot of defending this as Camden's idea already.
So thumbs up vote. Everybody think that's a good idea? All right. Let's do that. Forget about Allison. Great work. We're moving ahead.
Great.
And so now we have that link to Linda that we can make that happen. Great. Work plan. I think I sent it out to everybody, and I'm going to share my screen in case you guys don't remember. Basically, the idea, you suggested that we put together a work plan for,
Rockport?
yeah, and this is what it looks like. I don't know, can you see it?
Yep.
I think it's 2 pages. Yeah. So the idea, Jeff, you weren't here last week, but the idea was that it gives a clear, condensed message to the select board and the town about what things we're working on.
Yeah, no, I like it.
And the reason I'm showing it to everybody again is sometimes I forget stuff. So here's the first page. It's got Maritime, Route 90, and then I included the corridor, trying to talk about all those connections. And then the Rockville sidewalk, which is first up on sort of the grant. And then I added sidewalk bond related projects, which were the other 4 or 5 projects that we might get to related to the bond that was approved by the town. And then I have Russell Avenue sidewalk. Heidi, this is something I don't know if you want in there or not. It's long range. It says 5 years. So I wanted to run that past everybody too. Heidi, did you?
send that out to people? I don't remember seeing it.
Okay. I thought I sent it out to everybody.
I know I got it.
Okay, so some people got it. I'm happy to send it again, Helen.
Okay.
Heidi, are you okay with that in there?
Yeah, I am, especially if it is understood that it just might take a little while.
Well, it says 5 years, so.
Yep, I think that's great. Good to
Okay.
keep it on people's radar.
Right, exactly. And to let the rock, it's just another way to say, hey, we're out here. This is a long range project. So what did I forget?
Jeff, it looks like you sent it at 1:54 p.m. today.
No, I haven't been on my computer since then.
No way. I sent this a week ago when I sent out the.
I got
I
it.
think-
Yeah, I got it a while ago.
Got it a week ago.
I'll check my email.
You don't need to. I mean, you don't have to do that right now. Just
I
think,
can't anyway.
oh, no, I would just want you to put just think like, are there projects that you can think of in Rockport that we're currently working on or hoping to work on soon that I
Well,
didn't include here?
We've been talking for the last 10 years of finishing the sidewalk up Main Street to the town office. I mean, that
That's
was
the,
outrageous.
that's the sidewalk bond related projects down here.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
see it down here?
Oh,
Main
yeah.
Street, Village Steps,
Yeah.
Upper Russell, Lower
Yep.
Russell.
Yeah.
And that's, I heard somebody.
Yeah, it's this little mouse in the corner.
I can't see everybody
Okay,
right now
Can
because,
I just mention something? And you know how we try to be nimble in as well as consistent? So the town of Rockport has been talking about extending the sewer down Route 1 towards the hospital in Glen Cove. And it seems, and we talked a little bit about this with the DOT, and they agreed. They said it seems like a natural time to at least make way for a pathway along Route 1 down in that direction. And that was something that we had, I think, on the long-term plan, not the most high up, but I think we did have it in there somewhere. So I didn't know if we could possibly include it, just because the town of Rockport is getting going on that.
Yeah, I thought the word we got back from them was the plan's already out there and it's too late to put it in. And that it's actually
Well,
going the shoulder, not off to the side.
beyond
Right.
the scope of the,
Yeah.
Right, but even to get that clarified, Helen,
Yeah.
would seem like this would be a good time for somebody definitively to say, sorry, can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just
absolutely.
sort of. Oh, I didn't know if we could add that, Jeff.
Oh, there's plenty of room on that second page.
there is. I guess I'm a little hesitant, just because it's not, all it is a quick conversation. It's not something we're working on per se. What you're asking is to pose the question in front of to MDOT, to the select board or to Public Works and say, hey, this is something that you all were gonna, are you all taking this into consideration, the idea of prepping for a multi-use or a sidewalk along the section of this road?
No,
And the
we
answer
raised,
is,
we raised it
We
before the
did.
select board. We sent them. So it's not that that this is a new thing. It's something that we have talked about in this committee and something that we had already identified in the long-term master plan was to have a pathway down Route 1. So when the opportunity arose as the sewer is being built to discuss it, there was a miscommunication, or there wasn't even any communication between Pathways and the town of Rockport for even talking about the sewer.
I thought we wrote a memo.
The sewer, in other words, the sewer planning forged ahead, and there was nothing by any other town committee that said, oh, well, wait a minute, you're doing this, why don't we do this or this? But there was discussion, as usual, with Maine Water, oh, let's bury let's do something at the same time. But there was no discussion with Pathways about, well, maybe there's some other infrastructure planning.
And
we
as
could
I
incorporate.
recall, we wrote a memo to say that we are encouraging some sort of process move forward so that Pathways would be in the future considered the same way as water and sewer, et cetera, when a large project like this is going on.
So can I
Uh,
just say, and Helen was the one that mentioned something. I mean, it almost seems like maybe we need to have Pathways not considered in cultural and recreation, but that we should probably be under a different umbrella within the budget, or multiple places within the budget, so that it's not just looked upon as sort of this extra thing about culture and recreation, but that it is about infrastructure.
It had originally been in Public Works, and then it was switched to Parks, I don't remember last session or the time before. It hasn't been in Parks and Recreation for some time.
But I think that can add to how it's perceived in terms of importance.
Because it used to be under sidewalks, pathways, right in the Public Works. It was a line budget. Now I don't know when Megan moved it.
Where does it sit in Camden?
I think it's in Public Works. But it also, in the back of my mind, I think there's a special area for reserve funds, which is its own area, and there's a whole list of reserved funds. So
Exactly. Yeah.
reserve funds.
So to me, this conversation really is a perfect reason why it should be on that document that you were showing, Jeff, because obviously we have had these conversations, but we're not clicking on all of the different departments. So if we put it on here, it just gives one more option for the town to see it and go, oh, right, we're supposed to check with that. And it also just reminds them that we are serious about it.
Anita,
I just want to speak in favor of getting that onto this report, this list that you're making, the chart. And perhaps, I don't know at what level or with whom you'd advocate for having it moved to a different department, but I would recommend that
Yeah,
you
Bill,
advocate for that as well, because if it's not on this list, they're just going to say, hey, you know, we got this list from you. It wasn't on there. I don't know what you're talking about. You know, these things take a long time, but they have to be on the horizon.
Helen, can you take that
what,
about advocating for it to go?
I can, but I'm not going to be in most of that meeting tomorrow because I don't get back home until after 3, and Bill Post has a 3:30 meeting.
Oh, well,
No, the budget
budget.
meetings. The
Oh, yeah.
budget where they are putting the funds, sort of the reserve funds under culture and recreation.
Right, yeah, I mean, but if we want to move it from Culture and Recreation to Public Works, that needs to be brought up with Bill Post tomorrow because the budget's being handed out next week.
we can mention it.
I want to say two things. One is be careful what we ask for. We've had reserve funds put into Public Works before, and unless they are specifically designated for the intent, they get eaten up by asphalt and salt and things like that. And the reason we
Pathways Reserve, so.
yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying that if we've had issues in the past where Public Works includes funds for pedestrian bicycle infrastructure and it disappears. Much better if it has its own subheading underneath Public Works or something like that. The second question is, maybe you all aren't struggling, but I'm struggling. You keep talking about putting that actionable item in this work plan. Can somebody please put into words what the actionable item is that we are working on?
For Route 1, for the sewer project?
For the sewer project.
How about I email it to you, but essentially it's in planning for sewer expansion in Rockport along Route 1 and Route 90 incorporate planning for pathway, connector pathway.
Okay, I just wasn't getting it. Yeah, if you can sharpen that up, Linda, that would be great too. I'll take a pass if I don't get it from you. Thank you. Good.
On the switch over from one area of the budget to another, I'm sure this is me being not part of this on a regular basis, but what are we feeling that they'll remember that we are supposed to be at the table to discuss these things if it's in a different area of the budget?
So my thinking is that, and Helen, you would be able to speak to this better, but when you see, even if it's in reserve and it's in public works, your brain is thinking more, this is an infrastructure project as opposed to
Fun
this
thing.
is a recreational project, which I think we may have people who might value infrastructure in terms of being able to, find money over other things. And I could be wrong.
Well, pathways too, that our thing is not pathways for recreation, they are pathways to link pieces of town, places, and therefore, yes, it is more infrastructure. Where if it's under parks and recreation, then yeah, it's the little path down at the hospital or up in Erickson Field or whatever. It's not a connection from A to B.
Well said,
Bingo.
Helen. That's perfect. That's it. Bingo. That was it, Helen.
Sometimes I come up with something.
There it is. Yeah. There it is. There are your talking points, Margot. I'm sure you've got them. Allison, do you have any news on reflective snap bracelets or anything that the town might have?
Yes, I actually just broke into the box just now. We got a bunch, like a whole huge box, just freshly opened. So I don't know, somebody got bad information earlier because it did appear that the box kind of just arrived. But in addition to these snap bracelets and things, which are like this, if you're not familiar, there was a bonus in there, which are these reflective strips. They're tape of some sort.
Well,
I'm
I've
telling
had
you.
trouble with them.
Oh,
I've had
really?
trouble
You've
with
already
them.
used them? My kids,
Yeah.
did you try to put them on a backpack or something?
No, I put them on my jacket. They came right off.
Or a bike maybe, or I don't know. Well, these specific ones you did?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll have a few more field testers and see what. And then there's like some of this kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. I drove by 2 people at night, one walking a black dog with black stuff on. I was like, I wish I had a snap bracelet. I just wanted like, hey, here, this is for you. So easy. Margot, let's see.
I need to get some just because when I come out of Quarry Hill, I see so many people always walking
Yeah.
towards Wilmington. That's like
I think I might
Was
have
this a
given you
grant?
no, it came up in a conversation at the pedestrian safety conference where MDOT and BCM were, and they both said, this is great. And the town said, hey, let's have them here to give away, and let's give them away to community members to hand out to other people that maybe you see somebody walking in front of Aldermere down the road there and they don't have a light, they have nothing. It's like, hey, here, this is a really cool thing. It's free here. And you just give it away. You just give it to them. And you just have them in your car. So it's sort of a community advocacy thing. And the other one was, I thought, Margot, we were talking about maybe you getting a box or putting some at a box at the Y. And then I thought that, is it Gretchen Kuhn at the middle school? She was at the meeting too, and she's gung ho. She's the nurse, I think, at the middle school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She was like, yeah, I'd hand these out to kids. Absolutely. So what I'm thinking of, Allison, is that it's not BCM that really makes this happen. I think it's MDOT that makes it happen. And that's where the mix-up was, because Eric said that they were there, but no, and then it's Patrick, I think, that made it happen. I'm not sure. So Margot and Linda, I think I sent you Eric's information at BCM if you wanted to get some, or you can just go to the town hall. We also talked about putting them in the Rockport town hall, not town hall, but the town office. That was an idea that came up also.
Yeah.
Is there,
And
does
maybe
it seem
over,
like,
PD,
say again,
we'll put them
Linda?
over at the police. We'll put it at the police department and the fire station. We'll just get them circulated. Harbor master's office.
Allison, do you think there are like hundreds there? Should we split that box? Should we ask for another box?
100, there should probably be hundreds. I was really hoping this would be a nice opportunity to actually get the police department to,
I was thinking the same thing. If they
Oh.
carried a bunch in their car and they see somebody walking, just to stop and say, hey,
just to practice that skill of, and maybe get them thinking about it more.
They could say, hey, it's the law. Wear this.
Oh, well, they
No,
could.
it's not. I'm just kidding.
They
but
can't
Oh.
say that.
I know.
They can't
I mean,
say-
just to, because then there'd be more like we could actually ask them, to keep track of how many they gave out, or maybe start. Basically, I just really want to ask the police department to do something, but
and it's a nice thing for police to do.
exactly.
Hey, you're really dark. Why don't you put this on so you have a little bit of a reflection?
Mhm.
I need a bunch of them for my neighborhood. There are people everywhere come out here and walk at night.
Just go down to the town office.
Okay.
Let's see, does someone in Rockport want to ask MDOT on behalf of Rockport and also make sure the Rockport town office is into this, and then have it delivered and then take some up to the police department and stuff like that? That's Linda?
Yeah. I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. I'm pretty sure it's Patrick Adams, but you might want to, Linda, send it to both Patrick and to Eric. The Eric person that I sent you the information at BCM, I would send it to both of them. Taking some notes.
Allison, I did ask Audra about those 2 or 3 weeks ago. She had no clue where they were or anything. It was after our meeting when we said we could go to the
Right.
town office, and so.
But that's been resolved. Now we
Okay,
know.
so where would somebody go? Where will I go to get a dozen of them?
I mean, I
To
was there in
Janice?
Audra's office tonight. I opened up the box myself. There's currently on the table in Audra's office.
In Audra's office?
Yeah, but I'm
Everybody
guessing,
should know.
I'm guessing
they'll
you'll,
know.
by that point, it'll be like, you'll just ask Janice or whatever.
It'll be sitting on the countertop or something, Anita. That's been resolved. The fact that it wasn't there, I pushed and got a box.
Right. I know you've already had the experience of going, being told that they were there. You went down, there weren't any, but I verified it for myself tonight, and
Thank you. Great.
Cool. Question for the group. Next agenda item is Camden Downtown Drainage Project. I have this fuzziness in my brain. This is when they're redoing the sidewalks along with the drainage in downtown Camden. And we lobbied and got some bump outs. These are at the corners of roads right in the complicated downtown by the Camden National Bank area. Little bump outs by French and Braun, not by French and Braun, but in that little area. We've extended the sidewalks out a little bit to reduce the crossing distance. And they've added those at a couple of corners. And it was really good. We were part of those discussions, part of the planning discussions. But in the back of my mind, I thought we also talked about at some point, and I cannot find this anywhere, the idea of widening the sidewalk right in front of Camden National Bank on Route 1.
that's a heated sidewalk. I doubt it.
Isn't it a heated sidewalk? Are you sure?
I'm positive.
It's already narrow through there anyway.
It's already what, Helen?
I said the road is already narrow through there anyway. You've got parking. And on both
Right, it would take away the parking.
Oh, don't do that. That's where
Those those two parking spots.
There's 3, I think, but that's beside the point.
Or maybe there are 3. It's 2
All
or
of
3.
which are too close to the crosswalk. Well, some of which are too close to crosswalks, but whatever.
So here's my idea. Now you know what I'm talking about. I get these emails from people, all kinds of interest people. And this one was from BCM, Bicycle Coalition of Maine. They're saying, hey, we're interested in grants for Imagine People Here, which is sort of that urban.
Tactical urbanism kind of.
Tactical urbanism. And we could put, a white chain link thing around those 3 parking places and a bench and say, hey, Imagine People Here. Oh, Allison.
We did that already.
No, not there. We did it over on the park side, on the green side.
What do you mean?
Why do we feel like that it needs to be widened?
Well, I'm just saying, I thought the group wanted to do that. And
I think we should, but that's a really touchy spot because they tried that before with white chains and people didn't get it. And it's like, that still gets brought up.
It does?
Oh yeah. Like just as soon as we did all the advisory lanes, it was like all these people telling me how stupid I was. It's just another example of that white chain thing, which I mean, just mean stuff on Facebook, but I think we could find definitely places we should look for to do that kind of thing.
Right. So that's a grant that is available. It's not a lot of money. I think it's BCM has a lot of these things in a locker somewhere that we can borrow for a month and we put them up. And that's sort of what it is. They've got what it is it's a temporary structure to say, hey, Heidi.
I'm just laughing at Helen. It's just.
I know. Heidi's laughing too, but I don't know what she's laughing about. Maybe her kid is tickling her.
Because we all know people that are like, why are you guys trying to ruin the downtown?
Yeah, I just don't understand why that would even be a priority at this meeting. That's all. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that in a negative. I just feel like there's so many more important things to worry about, but maybe I don't know it's important.
Yeah. All right, let me reframe this question. Forget about everything I said and just say, hey, there is an opportunity to get a grant from BCM for Imagine People Here. Is there a project that comes to mind that we should be applying for this grant that might be helpful? I mean, we could do it for Maritime, but that doesn't expect, we're gonna build that. Is there something? Oh, I wonder if it would be some of the Rockport sidewalks that are part of the bond funding so that people start thinking about.
I still don't
We've
understand.
gotten a negative interaction with the public around it. I'm not sure if it would be a good thing to add.
You want
But
places?
it's not a problem. I'm just going to hang a sign on it that says Allison said that this is a good idea.
Yeah, I just don't understand what it is you're trying to put on a sidewalk.
Trying to get rid of cars and put people where cars normally would be and get people to imagine it might not be so bad if could be people here. We know you'd be giving up a parking spot, but just imagine how cool it would be if people were safer in the road. A little bit more of the road was dedicated to people.
Right. It could be widening the sidewalk. For instance, creating opportunity for people to sit or for.
Well, for example, can I say?
Andrew.
Oh, for example, up by Rite Aid there, you'd lose half a parking spot, but that's a very busy crosswalk and you put kind of bump out there, right? Or at French and Braun crossing over to, Brown's Market, whatever it is now. That's another good
But
option.
you're already trying to dodge people in cars, so why make it even more difficult to dodge them?
Say what, sorry?
I said, you're already dodging cars coming out of all those different roads and people crossing and it's already a mess. Why make it worse?
The
Why,
point is not
why
to
do
make
you,
it
why does
worse,
it make it
it's to
worse,
make it
Helen?
a lot more safe so that you're more visible. I come around that corner every day and there's people stepping out in front of me. They don't even look. So if they're given the opportunity to be out in traffic before they step into the roadway, then they're more visible.
I think this needs a picture because just a diagram of what this could, what this thinking is. So one of where we have it already, but then where that advantage would be, because otherwise, there's a lot on our plates already, and
I
We're gonna
think
do-
in mind, Allison,
BCM has
Allison,
a lot of good examples.
Wait a second. They do, Andrew. Allison?
So I was looking for time in the meeting to update you on something that's going to be on the select board agenda, which I think is very relevant. We are going to do a resolution. Hopefully, I think everybody will support it. Basically addressing the need to eliminate parking spots in Camden. I don't know if anybody saw the article that Susan Mustapich did that came out yesterday about, we've been actually working really hard on this crosswalk thing and dragging around these crosswalk markers, even in the winter, which is historic for public works to be putting things in the middle of the road, in the middle of the winter, putting them out, taking them down every snowstorm. This was a response to Jamie Stone once again, alerting us to kids getting, a kid did get hit in October, hit in the crosswalk on Mechanic Street and nobody found out about it. And there have been all kinds of close calls. And so we put these markers out. The one on Springs, two on Washington Street have survived pretty well. One on Mechanic Street got hit so many times, it just completely disintegrated. And we had to order another $300 one. But so that was, obviously really telling that if this crosswalk marker can't survive, what are we doing? We've got all the years of noticing that the sidewalk or the crosswalk goes at a diagonal so as to not interfere with parking up in front of the dentist office. It lands in a driveway where somebody can back up. It's the crosswalk that kids probably use the most in town. And so finally, big news, we blocked off the parking spots there because they really interfere with line of sight. So that there are a lot of issues like this around Camden, like on Free Street, where that's also been identified by a lot of middle schoolers. That crosswalk marker is blocked basically completely by these hedges that this woman has. There's all kinds of examples of this, like not wanting to get rid of landscaping features, even then when they're in the public right of way, because people, I guess in the past have just had a complete fit and the town has acquiesced, I don't know. And then parking, there's this real fear about getting rid of any parking in Camden, even though every single person over and over again tells us that we need to move the parking just a little bit farther from the crosswalks. So it could be this is actually going to happen. A bunch of parking spots are going to get probably removed, and Audra is planning on asking the select board, just as a kind of public information thing, and show of support that yes, we actually want town staff to do some of these things that have been said should be done for a really long time. So there's going to be basically a resolution showing support for pedestrian safety, even when it means eliminating some parking. So that's going to be on Tuesday, next Tuesday. So some of these places that parking spots get eliminated could turn out to be places, the parking spots are getting eliminated for other reasons, but they could also be places that people could be as part of the grant later on.
Imagine people here. Anita.
Allison, you brought up something else that I think has been a problem in town for a long time. And I wonder whether it is something that the planning board should address. I don't know yet how my role as planning board member works in terms of things that are brought up before the planning board. So I have a lot to learn about that. But I feel that hedges that are tall and block line of sight within the right of way, there needs to be a new regulation in town to.
Yes, we have all the regulations we need, just none of the political wills, or we don't know.
Well, something is disastrously wrong because they're
I
not
agree.
being upheld.
It's not being,
And-
it's not being addressed. So that's what
Yeah,
we're,
so is that a planning board issue, select board issue, police department issue? I would
It's
very much
a-
like to know what the rules are and how they need to be improved to get that changed.
a lot of people have things in the right of way. We don't go around bulldozing them right away, but when they're when they're identified as a safety hazard because they interfere with line of sight, then the people usually are sent a letter and they're told they have to trim or do such and such. It is a bit of a mystery why some stuff hasn't been followed through with in the past. Usually what happens is that maybe, I don't think this is the issue with Audra at all, but people are awful. I mean, it's very hard to be, if you're, a town staff person just coming to prune hedges that nobody dealt with, you're going to get screamed at. You're going to get a lawsuit threatened. They're going to call the town manager and threaten all kinds of things. Not every single person, but a lot of them. And so then they're going to call up the select board members and say, blah, 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 blah. This is such an injustice. And then sometimes if the select board member isn't really up to speed, they might say, that means they're going to call the town manager, say, did this really need to happen? And it's like this, it's this game of justifying it all the time. And sometimes the easier path is just to compromise and be like, well, nobody's really bothered right now. There is for a huge will to not allow that to happen anymore and to figure out why we're not making progress. I think Dave is doing a super awesome job, and Audra is she had to call the dentist office and say, we're taking away the parking spots in front of your office. And we're just, I don't know why you're making that face, Jeff. You don't think we should do that?
That was a hard call. That was a hard
It's
call
not a
for
hard
Audra.
call. It's a crosswalk where middle schoolers are being hit. It should be an easy call. We have the middle school principal for years saying, this is my number one issue that I'm concerned about. It's an easy call. The whole community is in support of this. And we have a town-owned parking lot that we're paying about $1 million for that's right across the street. So but there, for whatever reason, it's not fun to be yelled at. And so we're gonna have this just come up before the select board to kind of reiterate, these are the rules. Some of these decisions are going to be a little bit hard, but we need staff to feel empowered to do what is in the community's best interest and not, what is in the best interest of one private property owner. So anyway, I think that would be, once you see that come up on the agenda, it would be, it's very much related to pathways. It connects to the pave around issue too. Why are we not making more progress on pave arounds when the pave arounds can happen in the right of way? Well, because people are awful and it's going to be unpleasant and you're going to get screamed at a bunch of times. And so everybody needs to feel like the community really supports this. And even if it gets a little bit ugly with a few private property owners. So anyway, that's my.
Isn't it an issue basically public safety? I mean, it's public safety, right? So it's pretty simple to address.
Very simple. It should be very simple. But even Randy will tell you that in the past, when he's wanted to do certain things, it's just, there hasn't been sometimes there isn't the will to do it. And sometimes I think the people that have worked on this in the past have gotten discouraged and then they don't really do it. And we don't get a chance to check back in and say, no, hold on. We actually want you to do all of this stuff. The other thing we're going to do is we're getting quotes on those flashing crosswalk markers, which is really all Jamie Stone has ever asked for repeatedly, and why we can't just try to do that. It's just a mystery, but that's actually happening right now. We're getting some quotes. But it's amazing the stuff that doesn't happen just because some kind of invisible boogeyman in the woods that I don't even hear show up at public. I don't know I've never personally heard somebody say, don't fix that crosswalk, but anyway.
It's why a pathway didn't go out Park Street years ago because of one person. So that's how the communities operate.
Right, I mean, Rossin Ave, there was once gonna be a sidewalk that was gonna go on Rossin Ave, and a bunch of people, I don't want it on my side of the street and all this stuff, and it's just miserable. And unless town staff know that they're gonna really be backed up on this, it's not really worth it, I think sometimes.
Alison, can you please point out exactly what kind of backup is needed? And does that mean that you'd like the whole Pathways Committee to show up at the next select board meeting to support any work that increases safety of pedestrians?
How about when it comes out, the packet will include a resolution, and hopefully you can we could talk about it then. Maybe it'll be, I don't know.
I
if we
thought you
wanna-
said it's coming up on the next select board meeting.
It is, so that's faster than I was listening to myself when I said, we can talk about it then. Maybe just read the packet when it comes out and write something if you support it, or you can always be an attendee in the meeting, and if you feel that something needs to be said, but just to say something positive, hopefully that
Isn't the select board meetings on Tuesday, isn't it? Is there any objection that I write something up, a memo to the select board from the Pathways Committee that basically says that we support this, and I'll figure out what that support is. Any objection to that? I can do that pretty quickly. I have two more things related to this. One is just to remind everybody, part of the way we do the sidewalk survey of the town is we point out all these hedges that are hazards at corners. So it's a resource. I just want to remind everybody that's especially Public Works or the select board, that you've got a resource there. It's not just one place, it's all over town. And the second
you have
one,
a survey of that already points out where you think there are hazardous.
yes, yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry.
the sidewalk survey.
Sorry that I don't know
It's the
that.
Sidewalk survey, it's all right. That's why I'm
Where do
reminding
we-
people.
Is that for Camden and Rockport or just
Yes,
Camden?
yes. Yeah.
And where do we find that?
Well, it used to be on the website, but I'm finding that a lot of the links on the website don't work anymore. And they've lost them. But I can certainly send it out to everybody again, and you'll have a copy. It's not that large of a file. I can do that. The other thing I want to point out is Allison, I don't know if you were there, but I know most of us were there when Dave reported back to the group about his attempt to get a pave around in front of one of the hotels.
Perfect example.
It was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so that was Dave St. Laurent when it was like, he said it was pretty awful. And he, ugh. So that's a perfect example. Yep.
Just wondering if the town has an official schmoozer or somebody that's like a diplomat that goes out and approaches these people.
We
That
couldn't
has a
think
little bit of.
anybody better than Dave. I mean, honestly.
But he caved. Dave caved.
I don't know if he.
But I think it was private property. That was private property, so it's a
It
different
might be a little bit out
situation.
of the right away there. I don't think he really
Yeah.
caved. He was trying to see it as an example to
It's a
opportunity.
test case.
But-
You're right, Allison. It was more of a test case, and I believe it was private property. He was asking, but I'm not sure. Anita?
This pave around issue is a combination of paving around to resolve the more complicated problem of moving a utility pole. And certainly moving a utility pole should still be under consideration, especially in a situation where pave around is not permitted, wouldn't it?
Well, it'd be hard because you'd have to move the telephone pole into the person's property. It'd be really hard.
Well, they could be threatened with that.
And then they'd have to cut their trees down and all other kind of stuff. too.
Okay,
Mess,
so they have a
freaking
choice,
mess.
they have
Which
a
sounds
choice.
easier. Yeah, that's true.
We can't move utility poles. That's a whole different problem, but it's a big
Well-
problem, for sure.
but these are the options.
Yeah, well, Dave could point out to them, well, I will speak with the utility company to have the pole moved over here out of the sidewalk. Yeah, you don't mind, do you, having these trees all trimmed all the way down the front of your property? Is that okay with you?
It's a what if.
Out of curiosity, and I'll ask Camden, do you have in any of your comprehensive planning the like when they're doing digging on Route 1 to lay down conduits so that you could bury the utility poles? Like,
there's nothing in comp plans that talk about burying utilities.
Crazy expensive.
It's incredible. It's apparently expensive, and the maintenance is really hard below ground. At least that's
I think we recommended
that's
it.
the party line that was given to us.
I think we recommended it in the 2004 comprehensive plan in subdivisions and so forth, that electricity gets buried. But CMP always fights back, and everybody talk about caving. We all just cave to that.
but I mean, if you're already digging up the road, there's ways to put those conduits in, and you don't have to do it now, but they're there for, when somebody stops caving.
It's been repeatedly explained to me that it's more complicated than that. By people that seem to also care about the issue, but it's burying the power lines. I don't know. People seem to think that it's really expensive even when they're just doing it on their own. But I don't know. Fiber's another one.
Yeah, we've tried this before.
I think we need to talk to like somebody in Champaign, Illinois. You go into that town and it just has a totally different feel. And Camden is so much, has that feel that it would feel even that much more charming. And
It's
then
the blasting. It's the blasting of the granite that is the cost, I think. So Champaign, Illinois probably has nice, rich, loamy soil.
maybe that's it.
This is Wikipedia. Undergrounding is more expensive since the cost of burying cables at transmission voltages is several times greater than overhead power lines, and the life cycle cost of an underground power cable is 2 to 4 times the cost of an overhead power line. So there's a life cycle and all this other stuff too. So that's Wiki. Who knows? Just a quick
Of
look.
course, there's the issue of where you put all the transformers too. Big boxes.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. Yeah, they have to go somewhere. Okay, we're coming down to the finish line here, I think. Alan, did anybody else have an item before we come down here to the finish line here that they wanted to talk about? Allison, you mentioned you just talked about an item that we addressed. Anybody else? Okay. Just a quick bullet. Anita, I want to remind you about the AARP application. I'm going to get the sidewalk survey updated and organized so it's even more up to date. And we'll all go out and do that. Yippee, as soon as the weather gets a little better. And that's it. That's what I got. Are you okay with that, Heidi? Linda? Thank you, everybody. Anybody have a story they want to tell, a bedtime story?
No, but I want Margot, make sure you watch for me to log in on that Zoom meeting tomorrow. I should be home about 3:10.
Okay, I think I took the waiting room off.
Okay,
So you should be able to come right in.
thanks.
I didn't catch that, Allison, before it disappeared. Something about a map?
I know you guys have talked about trying to have a whole database of current trails and future trails. And I've been doing some work with GIS mapping of our storm drain system and working with the county to do that. And the county just got a big grant basically to expand what they do. And I don't know if anybody's worked with Leticia at all, but I ran this by Audra also. And if we wanted to get a group of Pathways people, we could try to get a project started with Leticia, and she would host, to gather all of the shape files and have all of these trail maps available. And then there's a lot you can do in terms of turning on public data collection and future planning layers. And I've been taking a course in it. The county has some resources to do it. If there was bandwidth in the committee to try to map all this out in the ArcGIS, a lot of it's just getting files that already exist and putting them somewhere. But Leticia is really good with this stuff, and it would probably be a good opportunity to try to get some help from the county. And all she does is mapping, and she's super excited about community projects for all kinds of mapping and shared data. And it's really exactly what some of you guys were talking about before. So I'd be happy to.
So we should talk some more, because I mean, I don't know what the towns have for their data in, shape files or even vector files. I think she could take them probably either way. Even if there were just little lines, she could probably incorporate shape and vector files.
Yeah, I mean, and then you can even do, like right now I'm mapping out streams and stuff too. So you can turn on this collector app thing and just start walking, and then you can just name it XYZ trail for the ones that don't already exist. But I've been collecting lots of shape files from Camden and Rockport and putting in my own little thing so that I can have all the Camden parcels and the Rockport parcels in the same spot. And Leticia's vision a little bit is to create like a Knox County hub, and she's not fussy at all. It can transcend counties. It can be the whole state. It's just to try to get all this data in one spot so you can turn these layers on and off and have like groupings of.
Well, that was very much one of the sort of agreed outcomes of that summit last winter. And Island Institute was willing to do it, but this is even better if she, as a county planner, what's her?
I forget what her title is exactly, but she's
on staff.
Oh yeah, she's definitely on staff, and she just got this big grant, just came through, and she's been helping the town a little bit figure out if we're using the right system. But she now she has all these extra, ArcGIS licenses, and now it's kind of her opportunity to put this to work. And so it's actually really important that towns try to use the service in order to show that it's worth it. So I've had a few meetings with her about different things. I ran this by her as just like one example of the type of thing that might be useful to Camden. She was really enthusiastic about it. She's like a kind of excited visionary mapping person. So it sounds like we should have just a separate meeting with her alone. And because it's also she would be really good. And I think this is where I got sort of hung up. We were brainstorming the layers and the kind of attributes that we would want, but somebody who knows this work would be able to, like people were saying, we would like to know, is this sidewalk one you could go take a stroller on, or is this really not a stroller? Or this trail, is it a multi-use trail? And so being able to kind of map out all these different pieces, and I think it'd be great if it went, to Rockland and
the whole county. But then on top of that, it's really a great way to identify where the gaps are. Like from this perspective, you can really see like, oh my gosh, if we have this little section connected.
Right, and you can see I've found examples of other towns using this same kind of system where you can turn on, a future planning layer, an in progress layer. So if any, I don't know, Margot, if you and whoever else wanted to designate yourselves, and I could set up a smaller group meeting where we could talk about this with Leticia.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Let me just frame it a little bit.
You know-
What it sounds to me, what Leticia needs is the raw data of where this stuff
Well,
is.
it needs to be like imagined. We need to talk about sort of like what would be the grand vision, what would be, but yeah, there's some of it would be the raw files, but that's kind of, we would need to make a list of what we need and plan out the, she would need to hear it from other people, not just me. I think it'd be perfect, just have Margot and whoever else just talk about, what we're envisioning, and she could tell us what we could and couldn't do and how the county.
And what tools create shape files?
Any number, there's a lot of software that will create shape files. The industry standard that's most used is Esri or ArcGIS. But
Those
you
are
can,
pretty-
any
but those
number
are-
of apps will output
those are-
shape files.
Those are big apps that typically people don't have.
Well, it is, but it's also, it's like a .csv or a shape file is a .shp. So there is open source software that does shape files that you can then import into Esri, but it's more, we don't even have to invent this, because as Allison was saying, the data already exists. There may be some gaps that it's not digitized in a form. Like I know Mary Spring, for some reason, they don't have their little trails in any digital form. They're all hand-drawn, photocopied. And so that would be a very.
That's what I'm driving. That's exactly what I'm driving at, Margot.
So,
Is that I think a lot of orgs just have them on drawn.
Yeah. But you can see, like, it's not,
Illustrations.
you're making it too complicated. I can sit there and I can draw it just like you did on OpenStreetMap. Like, it's not for those places. There's a variety of solutions have to be implemented for different things. But I bet like Maine Coast Heritage Trust might just have, I bet they've got it mapped out.
Coastal Mountains Land Trust has a really sophisticated mapping system, and they just produced a new one for around the mountain. But that one, exactly as Margot's talking about, you see the whole area. You see Camden, you also see down into Rockport in this new map. And using that would definitely show the gaps where people cannot get out to the Round the Mountain Trail by foot or bike very safely. They have to drive to various entrances. So they'd be a good contact too, I think, to ask what kind of mapping that they're doing. And maybe those files could be sent right over.
That's right.
And then
That's the point, is getting the
George-
bigger files.
Heidi?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
I was gonna say just that, land trusts in general, we do this work all the time. And MCHT is working with Coastal Mountains to make those maps, and it's definitely a resource that's out there. So I would love to be involved in connecting with that, but we also have the handheld tools that you can use to make them while you're walking. And so that's
Right.
Add me to the list, Allison, and I'd love to.
And Heidi,
Perfect. Yeah, you do.
Heidi, I was thinking about that, Heidi, because of it's possible you might be able to get some schools involved with the project, either at the high school level or maybe at Zenith. If they had a walking tool, they could be part of this project and see the end results, which would be really cool. But it goes back to what Allison was saying, which is we need to be clear about what information we want collected. So if it's not just data and
that's
we
where I
want
think
something else.
the primary meeting is to first figure out, why do we want this?
Right.
And
Yeah,
what do we want? And then you go about and you search for, okay, what do we have and what do we need? And so.
We want it for public safety and the burgeoning outdoor economy of the Mid-Coast.
Burgeoning, capture that. All right, thank you.
Absolutely accelerating.
Done.
Accelerating and burgeoning. Anybody else? Last chance,
Allison-
Richard.
Allison and Heidi, was there anybody else? And how do we take the next step to meet with Letitia? Do we just,
You
Thank
send
you,
me an
Margaret.
email, like a reminder email, and
Sure.
then I'll, to me and Heidi, and then I can use that and I'll
okay,
loop
so
the
just the
TC in.
three of us? Check it.
I'm gonna, I think I did some of this when I was playing with OpenStreets or whatever it was called. I love their attributes that they'd already created. Somebody's already done a lot of thought on this. And we can just rip off a lot of their layers or attributes. It helped me start to think about, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So I'm willing to lend a voice into that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's Allison, Margot, Heidi, were you in there?
Please.
Right. That's it. Yeah. Helen.
No, I've just got somebody pounding on the door. I've got to go.
Okay, bye. Richard. Get out there and groom the snow, would you?
Melting.
Ski trails all groomed at Aldemere if anybody wants to go skiing before it melts.
I know, that's the key.
I went out on the lake today and it was great for skis.
Mm.
It's got a good slide.
Mm-hmm.
Enough snow. It's really good.
And the,
McGonagall?
and the water's slowly building.
Yeah, there are lots of pools and puddles, but it's not all the way through to the lake. It's just, you just have to go around them.
Cool.
Cool beans.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Get back to me on those things,
Thank you.
Linda.